Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a sort of overview of some of the most uh, common symbols that you find in literature. In other words, the most common symbols that you find in stories, and these are symbols that have been used essentially from the beginning of recorded history. So these are the symbols that you find in myths and legends, in religious stories, in uh, literature, in poetry, stretching back all the way to the beginning of recorded history, like I said. So this would be stretching back well over 7 or 8 thousand years in terms of written history, and we could even see this stuff on in cave paintings and that kind of thing, which would be something like 30,000 years, maybe a bit more. So in any case, I sort of have seen in my teaching of different students that a lot of students are kind of lacking this sort of foundational knowledge when it comes to symbolism and when it comes to what texts actually are talking about. And it can be very helpful to actually understand these symbols because they are so omnipresent in various texts and they can act as a window into understanding what texts are actually talking about, what they're focused on. And if you don't know what these things are, then it can become an issue in terms of your actual understanding of the text. Um, so anyway, I'm hoping to sort of help to solve that. Okay, so to begin with, the first symbol, which is very omnipresent, which has been, as I said, which has existed since essentially the beginning of recorded history, beginning of writing, and likely very much before that, is the symbol of light. And fundamentally speaking, light has always symbolized goodness. Light is equal to goodness. These two are fundamentally connected. And we see this symbolism of light with goodness within different manifestations of light. For example, like the sun has always been connected in some way or another with the idea of divinity or God. And obviously, God is seen as the ultimate source of all goodness. God, goodness, divinity, light, they're all sort of connected under the same category of thing. So, light and things that are associated with light is essentially goodness. Okay, purity, innocence, goodness, the force which acts against darkness, uh, the force which is aligned with God, the force which is on the right path, the correct direction. This is the symbol of light. Now, um, as I said, we see this both in the different religious traditions. For example, there's many early Christian paintings would depict either Christ or different saints with a solar disc behind them, and I think in the inside the disc would be a cross, or it would just be a disc. And this was also done with the in Egypt with the different with different gods that were seen as good and so on. Also, the idea of Christ being the sun is obviously directly connected to the idea of the sun, which is the source of all light. Okay, so um, good. So anytime you see light somewhere, a place of light, a person who is connected with light, brightness, etc., with the sun, these are all indications that this person is heroic, they're a good person, they're working on behalf of the forces of good, and whoever is against them is essentially evil, is dark. Okay. Um, Yes. Now, another sort of connection to light is sometimes light can be the connected with knowledge or wisdom, and this is obviously because God is all-knowing, and so if you're connected to God, you would be also connected to knowledge, wisdom in some way. Another sort of connection with light is an extension of the idea of goodness and what God, which is the idea of hope or a new beginning. Also connected to the sun in terms of the sun rises every morning after it gets dark, which gives you a new day, which is new hope. Um, Now these are all, like I said, these are all minor sort of connections. This one is obviously connected to the main one, but these other ones are all minor connections. The main connection is the idea of good. So light equals good. Now the exact opposite to this is obviously darkness. And darkness is classically and pretty much always connected to evil. So light is good, dark is evil. And it's quite it doesn't take much thinking to understand why this is. Biologically speaking, our predators when we were living out in nature, uh, in the wilderness, essentially, when we had natural predators that we had to defend against that were trying to kill us. Excuse me, many of our predators would be would be nocturnal. They would be trying to kill us at nighttime. And so the night brought with it danger, and also we don't have night vision. The way our eyes work is they are optimized for sun for being moving around in the daytime. They're not optimized for moving around at night. So when when it is dark, we can't see what is around us. We can't see what is hiding. We can't see the dangers which lurk in the darkness. And so obviously, the darkness represents sort of death and things that can hurt us, things that can hurt our children. It represents what we can't see, and therefore it represents evil. Okay. And obviously, light would be the opposite of that. Now, uh, also classically, there's been a division between light and dark, where sometimes these two natural forces or natural elements will be characterized or anthropomorphized, meaning put into a person, given a character. Sometimes this is given into two different gods, which go to war with each other. Um, for example, Zeus and Hades. Zeus being the wielder of lightning, lightning, thunderbolts, and so on. Hades being the god of the underworld, darkness, shadow, etc. Um, and so, and also, I believe Christ, obviously, he's called the sun, which is a direct connection to light. And I believe that Satan is called Prince of Darkness. I could be wrong with that, but anyway, the point is, uh, often these two forces have been given characterizations with people, um, and they sometimes also are given they're also um represented or symbolized in terms of place. That happens a lot. So this would be the place of light, like heaven, versus the place of darkness, which would be like hell. Um, Another thing to sort of think about when it comes to light and darkness, the reason why light is connected to goodness is because you can see everything that's in the light. So the light helps you to see, and the light helps you to navigate to get to where it is that you should go, because you can see where the dangers are, and you can see where the good things are in the natural. Imagine you're in the natural world. You're in the wilderness, in the jungle somewhere, and imagine the jungle is completely lit up so that you can see it. You can see everything that's in there, and that way you can avoid the things that could hurt you, and you can go towards those things that can help you and things that you want. Okay, now imagine you switch so the sun goes down and the lights are no longer there. Now everything is dark and mysterious. Now you don't know which direction you're going in, and it's very likely that you're going to be attacked by some predator, and you can step on something that can poison you, for example, and so on. Now, this would be the biological explanation of why we see light as good, dark as evil. Now, the psychological explanation of why we see light as good, dark as evil can be an extension of this, can be an extension of this biological explanation, which is that um, if the light allows us to see things and allows us to have a clear sense of direction, what that means is we have a lowered sense of anxiety. Our level of anxiety goes down by a lot because we can map out a path for exactly where it is that we want to go, and we can essentially take the path without much worry about, accidentally stepping on this thing or that thing. If the whole thing's illuminated, we know exactly where to go. We can just follow the light essentially, which is another symbolic phrase which appears a lot in different texts and so on. But when the light goes out and when there's darkness, then that means that we can't see where we're going, we can't see what's around us, and that means our anxiety, our sense of threat and stress multiplies by a massive amount. And so we feel psychologically very disturbed in the dark, which is why children are essentially always afraid of the dark, naturally speaking, and um, why we dislike dark places, why we get scared of shadows and things like that. Now, another thing, psychologically speaking, why the light is good and why the dark is not good, is that as I mentioned before, in terms of the sort of side point, or not the side point, but the idea that the light helps you to see, or that the light is what allows you to see, then uh the other thing that it allows you to see is not just the external world, but it allows you to see your internal self. And so the light is what illuminates your soul, if you like. And again, this is another sort of symbolic phrase which is mentioned a lot in different texts, different stories. The light of God helps you to see yourself, and when you're connected or are aligned with divinity, with the sun, with God, with the light, with goodness, then your soul becomes illuminated, your soul becomes perfected, it becomes good and whole, etc. You become happy with the light of God. Now, what this means basically is that the light, if you have light and inner light, it means you can see yourself and you can understand who you are and you can shape your character and your character will become good, basically, and you can become a happy person, etc. And you can be a good person to people around you. You can become at peace with yourself. Whereas if it's dark, which means that you can't see, and if you have darkness inside yourself, then psychologically speaking, what this means is you are lacking self-knowledge, which means you're lacking knowledge of yourself, which means you don't understand who you are and you don't understand even what you are in terms of what whether you are in fact a good person or not. You don't understand your own desires, inclinations. You don't understand the darkness because the darkness is something you can't see into or see through. And therefore, there is things inside you which you don't even know are there. Uh, and therefore, you are in some sense not in control of yourself, and you are holding some kind of monster inside yourself, which is obviously a very scary, kind of frightening thought. You are in some sense aligned with dark forces, demonic forces. You are possessed by things other than yourself in some sense. So these are the reasons why we see the light as good and the dark as not good. So something to think about when you're engaging in this analysis, because obviously I don't have time to give you, or the video will be way too long. I don't have time to sort of give you every single symbol which is in the world of literature. That would take too long. But something to think about is the human beings. The way that we work is we have a brain which is good at taking things which exist in the world around us, in the natural world, and then creating a symbolic representation of them, which we can apply to other things. So imagine, for example, this new symbol here, water. So we can look at water and we can say water has different qualities. one of the qualities is that we need water to stay alive. Then what we can do and what we do, naturally speaking, in terms of how our mind and our brain works, what we do is we take that idea, that concept, that description or attribution of the function of water or what we use water for, and then we can take that and we can uh transform it into a symbol which we can then apply into other things. For example, we take this idea that water is the sort of thing we need for life, the thing that keeps us alive to survive. And then we take that, excuse me, and then we can say things like uh faith is like water or the water of the soul, something like that. Or we can imagine ourselves entering a better situation in life after we've been in a bad situation, and we can imagine that or interpret that with the symbolism of this was like I had been baptized or something like that. Look, reborn, given new life. Hmm? Which is why when people get baptized, it's like they literally call themselves being born again. They're born again. Their old life is gone. The life which was of suffering, of the devil, etc., of the dark path. They get baptized in the water, which is the holy water, the pure water, the water of faith, and then they are born again. They're given a new life. So this idea is not it's not unique to Christianity, but it's a symbolic idea which is very old. Um, our ancestors probably practiced something very similar even before we had writing, etc. So the point is, the way to think about symbolism is try to think about what is the object, the natural object being described, like light or darkness or water, fire, um, a ship, um, a key, a door, whatever the thing is. Think about what is the natural object being described. And then think about what is its function in terms of what is its literal function. What does it do for us as human beings? How do we use it? And think about what is its primary function. The way to know what something is, Aristotle gave this argument. It's called the function argument. Um, and part of the function argument, he says that everything has a true purpose, a true meaning. And the way he described this meaning is the meaning of a thing is what it is sought out for that it does better than anything else. So sometimes people today they sometimes get confused and they say something like what's a woman or what's a man? And then if someone gives them a definition, they'll say something like, well, then tell me what's a table. And they'll say, well, because someone might say it's a thing with four legs, but they say like a cat has four legs, etc. Okay. Okay. Now, the reality is the way that you know what something is you ask, what is this thing specifically sought out for that it does better than anything else? So, what is a table? It is or what is a chair? What is a chair? It is a thing that is sought out it is a thing that is sought out for sitting on. Okay, something that you seek, you go and find so that you can sit on it. That does the job better than anything else, basically. And that way, you can sit on a horse, but you don't seek out a horse to sit on it. You might seek out a horse for other things. It's like that. Okay. Anyway, the point is, ask yourself what is this thing used for? Okay, what is it used for? What is its primary function or purpose for us? Like for water, we use it primarily for drinking because we need it to stay alive. There are other functions as well, but primarily we use water for drinking to stay alive. Um, and then from the sort of concrete, logical, biological even um, uh, use or relationship with the thing, then you can move on to the more symbolic representations that you can pull out of that. And it might be helpful to ask yourself, psychologically from there. So you wanna start with biology, or just what you could say is natural reality. And then from there, you can jump to psychology and so on, philosophy and so on. But essentially, you want to jump from the real, the literal, and then you take that and you can use it and interpret it symbolically from there. That's the way to sort of become better at understanding symbolism and interpreting different symbols. Um, yes. Excuse me. And just to sort of continue with the function, the purpose of the function argument is um so what Aristotle said is that everything, for example, every part of you has a purpose, a meaning, a reason why it exists. Every cell in your body has a job to do, a function. So logically, it would only make sense that if your hand has a function or purpose, a job, a thing that it does, your eyes have a function, your hair has a function, etc., etc., then you as a whole, as a complete person, must also have a function, a purpose, a job, a reason why you're here. That's the function argument. Anyway, the point of it is that you have a purpose in life, which you should try and find out what it is. You're not just here for no reason. That's the idea. Okay, anyway, so I'm gonna try and get through the rest of these quite quickly. I think I've good and evil related to light and darkness are the main fundamental ones. I'm just gonna try and run through the rest of these quite quickly. Okay. Maybe what I'll do is I'll link the slides and you can check these out after on your own. Okay, so the next thing is water, which is obviously seen as a symbol of life, which represents life. Can also represent being reborn via, like I said, being baptized, as in being falling into water, like in the Arthur myth, he falls into the lake and he comes out of the lake with the sword. It's like things like this. Beowulf, he goes into the water, although this time it wasn't a meeting with something good, it was a meeting with a monster which is in the cave, a dark cave. He goes into the water, but he becomes something else once he meets the monster at the bottom of the lake, and she makes him an offer and he takes the offer. In any case, it's something which is a way of it's a doorway to a new life. Most fundamentally though, it's purity, it's life, it's usually used in a good way. It's usually a purifying force, not usually used in a negative way unless it has other things with it, like for example, darkness, things like that. For example, in the Islamic faith, when a person prepares to pray, they wash themselves in a certain way. And one of the ideas is that when they are washing themselves in this way, their sins sort of drop off with the water which they use to wash themselves with. And by this way, they are purified before they stand in front of the source of all goodness, which is God. Okay. Again, change and transformation. There's a very famous quote. I would write this down. It's a great quote. You cannot step in the same river twice. And this is by the philosopher Heraclitus. Um, meaning of this is that your life, once you've been through something, uh, the past will not. Once you've been through something, it's already happened. So let it go. Basically, the past is gone. So let it go. Essentially, the past, like being in a river and walking through a river, you don't touch the same water twice. In other words, let go of your past because it has already let go of you. So there's no point holding on to it. Even if you try to hold on to it, it's already gone. So let it go. That's the idea. Okay. Also, there's when speaking about the ocean, for example, it's often used as a way of symbolizing emotional depth. It can also be used to symbolize danger. This is more particularly speaking about the ocean and like things like oceanic storms, things like that. Also, the water can also be used often, again, speaking about the ocean, to represent the subconscious, to represent mystery, things like this. Okay. Excuse me. The next thing is fire. And fire has a dual meaning. Okay, fire on the one hand can represent destruction, chaos, can represent danger, can represent anger. But at the same time, fire can also represent uh, life. It can also represent light, like we mentioned before. And it can also represent, yes, illumination and knowledge. This is a very classic symbol with the connection between fire and knowledge or or a sort of an idea. Like we even today we still talk about things like a spark of an idea or, a light bulb switched on, light bulb being an electric fire. Um, and the ancient myth of Prometheus is that he stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, for which he was punished in a very terrible way. He was sentenced to be tied to a rock, and then ravens every day would or crows would, I believe, pick out his heart, and then he'd die, and then he'd be born again for it to happen again. And yes, in this case, fire represents, like I said, knowledge, light, guidance, that kind of thing, like the burning bush, um, that kind of thing, huh? Like if you imagine again, in the state of nature, when our ancestors were out there and it got dark, if we could light a fire, now all of a sudden we could control the darkness. We could now see things that we couldn't see before. We had the ability to learn about our environment even when it was dark. We could put light in the darkness, and in the same way, we could learn things that we didn't know before. Um, excuse me. The other kind of common symbolism in terms of fire is sometimes fire can be connected to sacrifice or purification, and this would be more so in terms of um, maybe sort of extreme purification, like something where you have to be burnt up and completely burnt up to be purified, like the idea that some people go to hell to have their sins burned off of them before they are accepted into heaven, something like that. Or the phoenix is a bird which completely self-immolates. It completely burns itself up and then it's born again in a new way, in a better way. Also, fire has been classically connected to the to war. Um, so for our, more primitive ancestors, if they could find a way to light fire and they could just light up the camp or of the enemy tribe, they wouldn't need to fight them, right? They would just set everyone on fire and everyone dies, basically. It's the fire of war. And even if you think about bullets and missiles and things like that, and bombs, etc., they explode and they create massive flames. So, okay. Okay, I think I might do this might be my last one. And then maybe I'll leave the rest for another day. This is just a good introduction to sort of symbolism, etc. And maybe I'll post a link to this in the description. I think that's a good idea. Okay, so the other sort of very classic symbol, which is seen in many, many, many stories, is the connection between rain and sadness. So rain has always been connected to sadness because it's like the sky is crying. Essentially, that's the basic idea. Human beings, like I said, we take things from nature and we interpret them symbolically and we apply them to different and we apply the symbol. It's like we extract the function or the thing that the object looks like or it does, and then we apply that abstraction, that symbol, or we make it a symbol, and then we apply that interpretation that we've taken to other things, basically. So, beyond the function of things like water gives us life, etc., light lets us see. We also will look at things and we will extract from them uh, an interpretation based on the thing reminding us of ourselves. So we look, for example, at a child and children cry. Even grown-ups, we cry when we are sad about certain things. When we go through hardship, we cry. And there's different reasons why, biologists, etc., or evolutionary psychologists have tried to figure out why is it that we cry. Um, One of them might be that it's a signal to other people that we are in need of care. For example, children cry, um, and the way that they cry is different. So the sound of their voice when they're crying is different from other types of when they're in distress is different from other types of noises that they make, and they're able to do this very early on, and it seems to be instinctive. And so this crying is a signal to other people that you are in need of care, you're in need of empathy, you're in need of help. And so you are able to get that and you're able to get help. And so as adults, we still carry that sort of that instinct with us when we get older. And so when we cry, it's like we're showing people that we need help. The other tribe members, yeah, give me empathy, etc. Give me a hug, blah blah. So it's connected to our ability to feel for others and to empathize with others. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into the sort of psychology of it, but so one thing that we do is we look at the world and we concentrate and we hone in on things that remind us of ourselves and on what we do. So when the sky is raining, it reminds us of our own tears, and we almost feel like the world is empathizing for us. It's like the world is crying. We call it a sad day. Um, and so the idea is that the sky is crying and therefore it's a sad day, which is why we hold rain as equal to sadness in the different stories that we tell. Um, another use of rain is a fresh start. Now, I would say this is not because it's rain, but more so because that it is water. And we already talked about this with the water idea. Excuse me. And it's water in terms of for our ancestors that were agricultural in terms of they grew their food in fields and so on. They needed water to fertilize these fields, and so when it rained, obviously it fertilized the fields, meaning that there's going to be new growth and there's going to be food, which is obviously a good thing. So that's the idea. It's more so to do with the water, not the like it's saying here. It's more to do with the water, not the rain itself. Okay. Um. Yes. Spirituality, etc. Okay. So I think that's enough for this. I was going to talk about some other things as well, like some different archetypes, like the hero figure, the mentor figure, etc. But what I'll do, I'll put this in the description, and I'll let you look at it yourself. I recommend that you do focus on this if you want to be good. If you want to be good, any good at philosophy or psychology or any kind of science dealing with human beings or any field which deals with human beings or trying to understand human beings, sociology, psychology, politics, philosophy, history, it would be very wise for you to understand these symbolic ideas because we human beings understand things symbolically. It's one of our fundamental language, essentially symbolism verbalized. Um, and written language is obviously symbolism written down and collected in certain orders and patterns, etc. So it'd be very wise for you to, investigate these and understand. This is obviously the work of your ancestors. It's deep in your DNA, a lot of this, like the snake representing danger and deception, etc. That's in your DNA, because your ancestors had to deal with snakes. The light being part of your DNA also, and the darkness, as I described before. So this would help you to understand yourself as well as other people. Therefore, I'd recommend that you do so. Okay, I'm gonna stop there and all right, take care.